potential new plot twist for the Silver and Black when it comes to their plans for round one of the upcoming NFL draft. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for April 14th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. You're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page. You know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support, coming back to the show each and every day as you do. And, of course, the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good. We appreciate him. We shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line is at 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, we'll close out the show hearing from you. Plenty of great calls, plenty of great texts. Still got mock drafts rolling through as we're 10 days out from the start of the NFL draft. We're almost there, but not quite yet, right? So just a couple short weeks, 10 days, as I mentioned, and we'll be ready to rock and roll and not talk about what could happen, but instead what actually did happen. But we'll hear from you coming up, segment number 3. Segment number 2, the New Orleans Saints. They had an unfortunate, it was a turn of events that we found out about on Friday. Doesn't sound like it was something that caught them off guard, but it could directly impact what they do coming up at pick number 9, which could directly affect what the Silver and Black do at pick number 6. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll break that down coming up. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. And off top, I want to talk about the NFL draft and have a little sad news to report here. This is about a guy that's not in the league yet. It was going to be making his way to the league. He was hoping to get selected and hear his name called very early on April 24th, but that will not be the case. Former LSU wide receiver Kyron Lacy was found dead Saturday night in Houston. An LSU official confirmed that on Sunday to ESPN. LSU put out a statement saying, "We're saddened to learn of the tragic passing of former LSU football student athlete Kyron Lacy. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and loved ones, as well as his former teammates and coaches impacted by his passing." That was a statement again from LSU. And Lacy was accused of causing a crash that killed a 78-year-old man on December 17th, then fleeing the scene without rendering aid or calling authorities. On January 12th, he turned himself into authorities, was jailed, and released at $151,000 bail, according to police records. So he already had that scenario going on. Matter of fact, the grand jury was actually supposed to start hearing evidence in the case on today. So it sounds like it was a suicide-type situation, but this is how it reads on ESPN.com. Adam Schefter tweeted this out late on Sunday night. Former LSU receiver Kyron Lacy, who was found dead Saturday night in Houston, died in an apparent suicide in his car while being pursued by authorities, according to the Harrison County Sheriff's report released on Sunday. Lacy, 24, already was facing criminal charges stemming from a fatal car accident in Louisiana last December. Harris County authorities say their pursuit of Lacy late Saturday night ended when Lacy crashed. When officers approached the vehicle to extract Lacy, they said he had died in an apparent suicide. That's what the report said. He was pronounced dead at the scene by emergency responders. Obviously, that's just all bad. It's tragic for the 78-year-old man that was killed in the car accident back on December 17th. Tragic for the Lacy family, everyone involved. Just something that you don't obviously want to hear at all. You don't want to hear about situations like this, but situations like this happen, and they happen all the time. And again, it's a suicide-type situation. The grand jury was going to be hearing evidence in the case against him already, so I'm sure he had a lot that he had going on and was dealing with. And I say it all the time. That's why you got to check on your folks, right? Check on your loved ones, check on your friends, because you just never really know what they're going through. People can, put on a big smile and laugh and joke, and really could be going through some things in their mind. And so the mental health is no joke. I think we're getting more and more educated about mental health each and every day, each and every year, which is a great thing. But situations like this are just really sad and tragic, and hate that for everyone involved. So definitely a lot of thoughts and prayers go out to all the families that are involved in that situation. When it comes to football side of things in the NFL draft, the New Orleans Saints, and we'll deep dive into this coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, could be dealing with some things of their own, right? This is something that's football related, though. Ian Rappaport from NFL Network actually tweeted this out on Friday, right before my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920 started. It was about 1:55. My show was supposed to start at 2 p.m. Pacific time. I was like, whoa, this could have a major impact not only on the show this afternoon, but obviously the draft. Ian tweeted out, the Saints suddenly have a major quarterback question. Starter Derek Carr is now dealing with a shoulder injury that threatens his availability for this season. Sources say he's weighing options, including the possibility of surgery. 9, 40, and 71. Those are the numbers I want you to remember, right? 9 is their pick in round number 1. 40 is their pick in number 2, and 71 is in number 3. 71 and a pick swap. If the Saints were to call the Raiders and say, hey, a quarterback's dropping, we want to move up to that number 6 spot to go get our quarterback. 9 pick swap, the Raiders give the Saints number 6, they get number 9. They're supposed to get number 71 as well, which is, the third round pick. But with them being desperate and it's a quarterback, I'm not budging off number 6 unless you throw in number 40 as well. I'm hitting you with the desperation tax, right? So 9, 40, and 71 is what, if I'm the Raiders, I'm trying to walk away from. If the Saints, in fact, do pick up the phone, say they want to move up to number 6, say Shedeur is dropping and they need a quarterback. Again, desperate times call for desperate measures, and that would definitely be a desperate move. And I know that they're saying that this is not something that is just brand new news to them, but with the fact that it's going to be, 10 days out from the draft, from today, they're going to have to make some decisions quick, fast, in a hurry. Spencer Rattler's not the guy, in my opinion. He's not that dude. Jake Hayner is not that guy either, in my opinion, and I think the Saints know it. So, again, it's not saying that that's going to happen. Obviously, we wouldn't know about it until the day of the draft, right? You would have to see if Shedeur got past the Browns at 2 and the Giants at 3. But if he does, then all of a sudden I could see the Saints saying, all right, well, we're going to pick up the phone and make some calls and see what happens. And the Raiders could be the beneficiary of that. Again, 9, 40, and 71 is what I'm trying to roll out of there with, saying, hey, you're desperate. You need a QB. I'm going to need that number 40 overall pick as well. Extra second-round pick and an extra third-round pick. Again, not a big fan of trading back. I want the Raiders to get a big impact player, but there are some dudes that they can get at number 9 and still get that extra draft capital. Matter of fact, we'll talk about some of those guys that could be available in that 9 to 10 range if the Raiders were to trade back. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. My final little nugget I have for you for segment number 1 has to do with Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback. He was on the Rich Eisen show. Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network was actually filling in for Eisen that day, and Quinn was talking about his visit to the Raiders, what it was like to talk to Pete Carroll, and the fact that Pete Carroll is really tight with his college head coach, Steve Sarkisian. So I thought this was a pretty interesting back and forth, and really found it to be interesting what Pelissero said at the very end when it came to Quinn Ewers and the Raiders. Check it out.
Imagine when you're sitting across from Pete Carroll. So you start in your mind's eye to envision, like, oh man, like I'm a Raider quarterback right now. Like, do you start to get that feel and like envision, like, all right, this is what it would be like being on that team?
Yeah, totally. And Coach Carroll is awesome. He just is always talking about compete. That's like, I think he probably says that word 100 times a day, and it'd be super cool to be a part of a program, a part of a franchise that they live and die by how they compete. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're in the building, he said you're either competing or you're not. And there's no in between. And I feel like that's kind of how I already live. So it definitely would be cool.
Quinn Ewers, Vegas, that Pete Carroll meeting, I would just say, file that one away.
Oh.
I would just say, I don't know.
Oh.
We don't know. The Saints certainly are a possibility there. Write it down. Good job, Brockman. And write it down, and then don't check the odds on it, because I can't give gambling advice. I'm just saying, Quinn Ewers, Raiders, to me, would make a ton of sense.
Interesting.
If after trading for and paying Geno, they don't want to use the number 6 pick on a quarterback, they're going to need to add somebody to the room. Could it potentially be Quinn Ewers? That would not shock me.
So you hear what he's saying right there, and normally guys like him, Schefter, Ian Rappaport, they don't say stuff like that unless that's coming from a place of knowledge. It isn't just one of those they're trying to grab something out of their backside, throw it against the wall, and hope it sticks. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. Ewers wouldn't be a guy that I think that the Raiders would even think about pursuing until, late day 2, early day 3. So basically the, round 3, later round 3 and early round 4, I could see the Raiders being in play for Quinn Ewers there. They're also been tied to Milroe. Jalen Milroe is that's a guy that they've done a lot of homework on, a lot of due diligence, even though he's going to be there in Green Bay. So he's expecting to go in the first round. I'm still surprised that he accepted that invite. Clearly, He must know something that I don't know, right? I mean, again, because they don't just give those invites to anyone. The guys that they don't think are going to go in the first round, they don't want to sit them in the green room and just have the cameras showing them, right? Like we've seen over the years. So he might go earlier than the Raiders have an opportunity to go get him. Someone might trade into the back end of round 1 to go get him, but apparently the Raiders have had a lot of due diligence that they've done on Jalen Milroe, and it sounds like Quinn Ewers could be in play for them as well. But what could be a realistic option at number 9 if, in fact, the Raiders do trade back from that number 6 spot? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, and that is Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No consoles required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports, College Football's 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribers like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and a whole lot more. Right now, what you need to do, head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass, Ultimate subscription, and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into the different scenarios that the Raiders could find themselves in if, in fact, Shedeur Sanders starts to drop and the Saints are interested in bringing him in. He's been tied in with the Raiders, or with the Saints, I should say, at number 9. The Mel Kiper Jr.'s, others have slotted him in there, picked number 9 on their latest mock drafts, and he, well, very well could end up there at number 9. But they also could get desperate because of the news about Derek Carr and the shoulder, and especially if he's going to miss a large chunk of the season or miss the season entirely, that they could get desperate and say, you know what, we're not going to wait for Shedeur to drop. We're going to go up and get him instead of, allowing another team, like say the Jets at number 7 or another team that may be interested in trading up. So this could end up really benefiting the Raiders. I've been very adamant about I prefer the Raiders to stay there at number 6, but if you're going to trade back, as Mike Tannenbaum, Mike T said, and I had that sound here on the show, as long as you have some people in place that you're very comfortable drafting when you trade back to whatever spot that is, then that's okay. Plus, you're also picking up extra draft capital. So I mentioned in segment number 1 what I would do, pick swap, obviously 6 and 9, right? The Raiders give the Saints 6, they get number 9. Also, I want the Saints' second-round pick, which is number 40 overall and 71 overall. If that's not going to be the case, if they say, no, that's too rich, all right, cool. No problem. I'll stick and pick, right? No problem. Again, it's your call. I'm not desperate. You are, right? So, again, when teams are desperate, they'll give up extra draft capital, even though, the trade chart will tell you that that's too much. So if that is the case, if they agree to that deal and the Raiders trade back to number 9, who could they be looking at in that position? Well, I think there's a lot of different players, really. Ashton Jeanty is going to be gone, right? I say that. Maybe he's not, right? Maybe he's still available, but most likely he'd be gone. So I'm just going to go ahead and work on the assignment that he's already gone. But with that being said, we've talked about offensive linemen. I think Will Campbell, the offensive tackle at LSU, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas, both of those guys at one point were considered the number 1 tackles in the draft. And now Armand Membu out of Missouri is considered to be that number 1 tackle. But out of the top 3 tackles, I would think that at least 2 of them should probably still be there at number 9. So if you want to go that, and I know it's not something that's going to get Raider Nation fired up and super exciting. You're not going to go buy a jersey all of a sudden for a Campbell or Banks, but you could end up having your starting right tackle for, years to come, right? And maybe even a guy that slides over to the left side when Colton Miller is no longer there. But Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, both guys that I could see going in the top 10, both guys I could see being available at number 9 if, in fact, the Raiders were to trade back from 6 to 9. Speaking of Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas, right? Those 2 guys at that cornerback position, I think both guys will be available. Will Johnson's actually having a little bit of, it's not a pro day, but it's just a private workout that he's doing today, as a matter of fact, in front of a bunch of different scouts and GMs just to let him know how healthy he is. And then he's going to be heading to Vegas tomorrow to meet with the Raiders. So obviously they're going to get, firsthand acquaintance with, or I guess that's not the right word, but they're going to get familiar with Will Johnson, I should say. But both those guys, I believe, are going to be available. And, right, we've had a couple people call in and say, I think Barron would actually probably be the better fit with what the Raiders want to do. Barron is a guy that can line up all over the field, and he's not a guy that's coming in banged up like Johnson is. It might make more sense to even go with Barron. He very easily could end up being the first corner off the board. I would have no problem with either one of those guys. Johnson's a little bit taller at 6'2", but Barron could play. Both guys had 5 interceptions their last year at school, so I'm good with that. Both guys have shown production going and getting the ball. That is a good thing. So those two guys could both be available at number 9. Wide receiver. It's funny. It seems like everything has to do with Texas. Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas, or Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. I still think it's a little high, number 9 for T-Mac, but if you want a wide receiver and you feel good about it, I think both of those guys would be good options. Both those guys, I think they're going to be competing for the number 1 wide receiver on our mock draft that we had on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Radio 920. The Cowboys actually took Teteroa McMillan at number 12. Our guy Clarence Hill has been covering the Cowboys for a long time. He actually took T-Mac there at number 12. So I think it's still a little rich for either one of those guys, the wide receivers. But again, if you want a wide receiver and you feel good about the fact that you picked up that second round pick, number 40 overall from the Saints, I think you could sell yourself on going and getting one of those two guys and feeling pretty good. Running back. What are you going to do at the running back position? Amarion Hampton, I'm sure, is still available, right? And that might be a little higher than a lot of people want to go get him, even though some people have him as the number 1 running back. He's a guy that I said on my radio show that I don't want to see him drop to number 20. I desperately don't want to see him drop to number 20 because he's been considered very Alvin Kamara-like, and that all expectations are if he's available at number 20, then the Denver Broncos are going to take him. And, well, Sean Payton knows how to use Alvin Kamara, as we know. So Amarion Hampton, if the Raiders decide they want to go running back position at number 9, they could go with Hampton, or they can wait on the running back and go in round 2, especially if they pick up that extra second-round pick. They can go with one of the running backs from Ohio State that Chip Kelly has his familiarity with. And then 2 other guys that are possible that could be in that position, but I think that they'll be gone. But you never know how things happen to drop. Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, or Jalen Walker, the edge out of Georgia. I think both those guys are going to be gone by 9. But you never really know. It's funny, on our mock draft that we did on my radio show, the Saints actually got Mason Graham at number 9. Ross Jackson, who's from Locked On Saints, does a fantastic job. He called in my radio show to make the pick at number 9 for the Saints, and he couldn't believe Graham was still available, so he took him at 9. Now, obviously, before this Derek Carr information came out is when he made that pick. So I would have loved to get him on and ask him how this impacts the draft, and if he thinks that the Saints are going to get desperate and try to trade up. I do think that they're going to end up that way. If you see Shedeur drop past Cleveland and drop past the Giants, don't hesitate to think that the Saints are picking up the phone to call and make a call, right? And I don't know if they'd be comfortable trading all the way up to number 4 with the Patriots, or 5 where the Jaguars are. But I think that 6 is a nice range. It's not trading up too high. They're not having to get way too much capital. 9, 40, and 71 isn't a whole lot as far as I'm concerned. But still, it helps the Raiders with that extra second-round pick. So I don't think that those two guys, Graham or Walker, would be available. But if they were, I would not even hesitate. I'd run up to the podium and turn in the pick, right? Because those two guys are difference makers, and they'll make your defense that much better. So it's funny, as I was looking at it and kind of going over it throughout the course of the weekend while I was still trying to process everything going on with Derek Carr, I realized there's some real good talent there. And only trading back 3 spots. Again, I'm not a big fan of trading back, but if you end up with one of those guys out of the ones I just named, I don't think that you're too upset, especially if you end up picking up two more draft picks out of that, number 40 and number 71 as well. Now all of a sudden the Raiders go from having 9 picks to having 11 picks. Yeah, then you have more ammunition where maybe you do want to trade up to the back end of round 1 and pick up a Jalen Milroe or a Jackson Dart if that's the direction you want to go for your quarterback. Because trust and believe, you have to come out of this draft with a quarterback. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if they're going to end up being the franchise quarterback, but you have to at least try to go get a guy that you believe that you could develop at some stage of the game. I don't care if it's early or late. You have to come out of the draft with some quarterback of either silver and black. You are not going to have Geno forever, and if the Raiders win, like I believe that they're going to do, they're not going to be in position to get a first round pick early, right? They're not going to be picking in the top 3, top 4, top 5. And if they are picking in the top 5 next year in the draft, something went terribly wrong, right? And obviously we know something could go terribly wrong, but I'm not anticipating that. I'm anticipating them being, around 8 wins this upcoming year, and that's going to put them around where? About pick anywhere between like 15 and 20, something like that, based off whatever their overall record ends up being. And I don't think that that's going to be a very good position to go get a quarterback. So trust and believe there needs to be a quarterback selected at some stage of the game coming up in this draft at the end of April. And I'm thinking it's going to be pretty early. If they trade up to the back end of round 1, so be it. Maybe they do go and get a Jalen Milroe. Maybe they go and get a Jackson Dart, right? Or if they wait for day 2, I mean, I mentioned Quinn Ewers in segment number 1. I don't think that that's a guy that you feel like is going to be your franchise quarterback. I just don't feel like he's that guy. I don't feel like there's too many of them that you feel like are going to be your franchise guy. But the Raiders have to make some decision on who they're going to get sooner rather than later. But those options right there, Will Campbell, offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron, both cornerbacks, one from Michigan, one from Texas, Matthew Golden, Tedoroa McMillan, those wide receivers, Amarion Hampton, the running back. You can get him, Mason Graham out of Michigan and Jalen Walker out of Georgia. 2 possibilities that might be there. But, I mean, that's a handful of names I just rattled off to you at the number 9 position. I'd be comfortable with any of those guys if the Raiders came away with them after day 1. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts are next, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the Raiders forward as we look ahead to next season. And I know I've been rolling with Ashton Jeanty because, well, I think that that's the easiest one to pick, right? That's the name that stands out, that checks all the boxes for the Nissan Armada. Heavy duty, rugged, conquers the road with capability and confidence, dream big, go big. I'll rock with Mason Graham. I know that might be a big dream. He might not be available there, just especially in that scenario that I just rattled off in segment number 2, where the Raiders trade back to number 9. But I'm just going to say in my world, because it's my world right now for the next few seconds, I'm going to say that Mason Graham's there. And he's everything that I just mentioned. Heavy duty, rugged, conquers the road with capability and confidence. He can help the Raiders dream big and go big. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what Mason Graham can do here. It's clear that our player of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any other outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts. You have that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a text from L.A. Raider Steve. What's happening, Q? Thanks for such a great show. I look forward to it every day. I want to talk about our draft pick. If we take Jeanty at 6, I'm not hating. If we take an offensive line, I'm not hating. If we take a defensive line, I'm not hating. Any of these I'll be happy with. But truth be told, I'm leaning towards Jeanty. I know there have been talks about maybe an offensive lineman or a quarterback at 6 because in the later rounds the cupboard is bared. We should take Jeanty because we could find offensive line in the later rounds, but if there's a running back at Jeanty's caliber in those same rounds, I don't think so. We take a quarterback next year due to more options with a better class. Will we be in a position next year to take a running back at Jeanty's caliber? I won't mind if we grab Jeanty and build our offensive line in later rounds next year's draft. I'm also fine with drafting a quarterback in later round or even next year. It's from LA Raider Steve. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, that's a good debate, right? I mean, because Jeanty is obviously a heck of a player, and you want to add as much real deal talent to your roster as possible. The Raiders have a lack of dudes, right? I know I say that and some people roll their eyes, but they have a lack of dudes, and he absolutely is one. The question is, are you going to win too many games to be in position to maybe get a quarterback next year? That's why even over the weekend, I saw a lot of people, and they kept saying, well, Q, if Shador's there at 6 and Jeanty's there at 6, who are you taking? And I kept saying Shador, and I said the reason why is because I don't anticipate the Raiders being in a position to get their franchise quarterback anytime soon. I think they're going to be picking closer to the 20s as opposed to top of the draft. I think they're going to be in the 15 to 20 range more times than not, right? If they go and win 8 games, that's going to be around, 13, 14, something like that based off what the rest of the league does. I think that'd be hard to find your quarterback of the future there, so I feel like you almost have to do it, but I get it. And also on top of that, the team has to love the guy. If the team doesn't love the guy, then they better just go with Jeanty. So I think there's good conversation back and forth. Everything that you said makes all the sense in the world. And if they can roll the dice and not get a quarterback their franchise quarterback till next year, or maybe get a guy like a Milroe, like I suggested at the back end of round 1, early round 2, then maybe he can develop. He can sit behind Geno for a couple years, right? He's a guy I wouldn't feel bad about having behind Geno for a couple years. Like Shedeur, I don't think could sit behind Geno more than a year. But a guy like Milroe, he could probably sit behind Geno for 2 years and be comfortable. And then they can say, all right, we're going to move on from there, have some small packages here and there for him. So, I mean, those are all scenarios that are definitely in place. Thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Darren from the 203. He's calling to talk about the car situation in New Orleans and how that could help the Raiders out. Here's Darren from the 203.
Hey, Q, it's Darren calling from the 203. Draft talk. Straight to it. I know you're not a big fan of trades down. I get that. But with the news of Carr possibly missing time, right, that's ought to make the Saints a little more inclined to try and get quarterback. So say Shedeur slips fit to 6, and the Raiders are sitting there at 6, and they could either, Gentry's there, or Graham, or maybe they want to take Shedeur. But the Saints call in, what would be a realistic trade that you would be fine with as someone who really doesn't want to move back? Because the way I see it, right, I can't remember the guy's name, Mike T, right? Maybe? I don't know. But the former GM you spoke to is like, if you trade back, you better make sure that the number of spots you move back, you have that many guys you're comfortable with, or something like that. So if you move back from 6 to 9, right, maybe you miss out on Gentry, but it puts you right in front of Chicago, who I think is the other team after the Raiders that is kind of a threat. Take Gentry. I don't see New York taking Gentry at 7. And who's picking at 8? I don't know who's picking at 8, but hopefully they don't need a running back. My point is, what would be a trade from 6 to 9, where you're like, okay, cool. You know what? That makes sense. Moving back 3 spots, Graham, McMillan, even after the stuff with the tape came out, and not really liking tape or whatnot, that I kind of, I've called and talked about taking him at 6. He's like off my board at this point. I do not like the sound of that. But point stands. You can get a quality player at 9, just like you could at 6. Maybe you miss out on Gentry. Maybe not. But what would that look like? Is it realistic to think the Saints would send their 2 this year? Move up 3 spots? Because if you think about it, the Raiders having 2 top second-round picks, well, now you have more than enough fuel, if you don't already, to go ahead and move up to the end of the first and snag Milroe if that's your, what you feel inclined to do. Or I don't want to butcher his name, the kid out of Ohio State. If you can move back up to the late first with one of those seconds and still have that additional second-round pick to go with one of the running backs or to go with one of the receivers or one of the tackles that slips. Or the linebacker to UCLA, his name has popped up a lot. I haven't watched any tape on him, but sounds like he's a good pick. I don't know. Let me know what you think. What package would you be content with moving back from 6 to 9 if it meant possibly missing out on Gentry? And shout out Ari. I do not do that enough. I apologize, Ari. Shout out to you. I just got off of work, man. I don't know if I got it in me. Raiders!
Darren, thanks so much for the call. And yeah, again, as you know, I'm not a big fan of trading back, but you're in position of power with the Carr injury. You really are, right? So I would swap the 6 and 9, ask for 40 and 71, like I mentioned in segment number 2, and I think you're on to something. And again, I rolled out the different players already that you could still probably be in line and pick up at number 9. There's still some really good talent there at number 9 that just continues to add to your team. Not a lot of stars in this draft, but a lot of starters. That's the biggest key right there. And definitely got to give a big shout out to Ari as well. Darren, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Mike True in the 562. So what's up, Q? It's Mike True from the 562. Just want to talk a bit about this offensive line. I think getting a couple O-linemen in this draft is a must, but I don't think we should be looking at them until maybe the 3rd round and on. I think the main focus this offseason for our offensive line should just be to generate chemistry and continuity with one another. I think that is something we definitely did not have starting last season due to injuries. I don't think our O-line is elite, but I do think that if we can figure out our starting line early this offseason, we can use that time to get them to gel together. Health is wealth, especially when it comes to an offensive line. With that being said, I think Gentry at 6 is the way to go. With such a deep running back draft class, why not go after the absolute best one? With a generational talent like him, I think all he needs is a somewhat competent line. Let me know what you think, Q. Go Raiders. That's Mike True in the 562. I think you rolled it out, right? I mean, I wish I knew 100% how the Raiders really felt about the offensive line. I mean, John Spytek, when he was talking about it, he didn't commit at the owners' meetings. He didn't commit to the offensive line. He said there's going to be guys competing out there. So I don't know how sold they are on this offensive line. I know what Pete Carroll told us at the combine, but I wish I knew, as a matter of fact, like how they really hit them with the truth serum, how they really felt about that offensive line and how much of a concern it is or it isn't at this stage of the game. But again, as many are saying, Genty is that generational talent. Then it might just be too good to pass up. And again, if the Raiders come away with Ashton Genty, and we're talking about him on April 25th, as that was the Raiders' number 6 overall pick, this guy's not going to be mad. I'm not going to be mad at all because he is a heck of a talent, and the Raiders need as much talent as possible on the squad. So not going to be mad at that at all. I just want to know how this team feels about, certain positions, groups, and how they move forward. We know that Chip Kelly is going to want to run the rock. We know Pete Carroll is going to want to run the rock, right? That's just what we do know. And so Ashton Genty does make a ton of sense. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Stabler's Ghost. He's calling to talk about Genty at 6 and what the Raiders should do if he's not available. Here's Stabler's Ghost.
Hey, Q. Stabler's Ghost from the 518. I don't think I've ever called into your show, but I've texted you a bit. And I don't think that Genty makes it to 6. I think that Mike Vrabel's going to want his new Derrick Henry, which he might be that good. He might be better. He might be worse. We don't really know. So I think that the Raiders should take a tackle at 6 if they have one that they love. Or I think it'd be better to drop back to 9 and then take BPA. Or your tackle will probably still be there. Anyway, Q, I can't wait for the draft. Let's go Raiders!
Stabler's Ghost, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. Tackle, offensive line, or defensive line, right? Whatever the tackle could be, it's all good. Defensive tackle, defensive lineman, offensive tackle. Yeah, I mean, that would be good, right? The trenches, build the trenches. That's the key right there. Trade back to 9, get the top corner. That'd be good too. Right, like I said, if that's Johnson, if that's Barron, whatever Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham feel best fits what they want to do, I'm good with. I really like Barron a lot. Been talking about Barron for a while. Of course, had the call last week suggesting that Barron was the better pick for Pete Carroll, and I've been thinking about that and keep on asking all these different people that know better than me what they feel like. And Barron is that guy who's a Swiss Army knife, man. You can line him up all over the field, which is exactly what I think that Pete Carroll would like to do. He's very Jeremy Chin-like. I think that's a good way to put it. Jeremy Chin was the guy, remember when he was coming out and he was being drafted by the Carolina Panthers? Like, you can line that dude up everywhere, and he's just that guy. That's who Barron is, and I would love to see a guy like that roaming around in that Raiders defense, in that Raiders secondary. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Got a text from Raider Jason in the 304. It's funny, I laugh because he's in the 304, which is West Virginia. I was on my radio show, Joe and Q on ESPN Radio, and we were talking about Kevin Durant, where he was going to be playing in 2026. And so I said, well, KD's going to get a phone call from the 304, and he better not ignore that call. It's going to be Pat Riley. And it was so funny because I said that. Pat Riley's in Miami. 305 is Miami, but 304 is West Virginia. So as I'm going through this, I thought I was all cool because I used I'm going to use the 304. I'm going to say they better pick up that phone call. And then my producer Cam jumps on and says, I'm pretty sure 304 is West Virginia. Pretty sure Miami's 305. And I know that. I know that for a fact because of my guy, Brother Marquise, in the 305 rep Miami one time. Like, I say his area code every single time I say his name. I know that Miami's 305. And yet I still messed it up. So, Raider Jason, I laugh when I see you're in the 304, which I know is West Virginia. It said, Q, Raider Jason from the 304. Draft day will be here soon. I think the Silver and Black have positioned themselves well with free agents acquisitions. Here's what I hope the Raiders come away with in the draft, not in specific order. 9 picks. 2 cornerbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a linebacker, a quarterback, offensive tackle. The theme, corners and firepower. Because DBs win games, and I'm tired of watching an inept offense. Finally, get a young athletic quarterback to sit behind Geno. Those are some serious moves. As always, love the show. Thanks for all the pre-draft coverage. Just win, baby. Go Raiders. Raider Jason in 304. I like it, man. It sounded like Noah's Ark at first. 2 cornerbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. But I wouldn't be mad at that either. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Get a linebacker, a quarterback at some stage of the game, offensive lineman. Yeah, that would work with me. that would work, right? I definitely believe that they need to add some corners to the room. Wide receiver, we already know that's at least you need to get at least one, so 2 makes sense. And I do believe with this running back class being so deep, it would not shock me at all to see the Raiders come away with 2 running backs. So good stuff, Raider Jason. Thanks so much for the text. Do appreciate it, man. I think that's some really good stuff. And that's all I got time for on today's show. I got a call from Hoedown Raider in the 626. That'll be on tomorrow's show. A text from 360 Raider. We'll get that in as tomorrow as well. We'll get some more news and notes. Hopefully we'll get some kind of more, I don't know, I guess information on what's going on with Derek Carr and the Saints. And maybe they're going to end up, like I said, being desperate and try and trade up to that number 6 spot. But we won't know that about them trading up until actual draft day, which is April 24th. But we'll be back tomorrow as we are each and every day here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So as always, Raider Nation, until tomorrow, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.